All right, what's going on, guys? So in this installment of PVM Fundamentals, we are going to be talking about movement for the final time. What we're going to be talking about is how we can use our mobility spells in 3 different ways. 1, we can use them to get places more quickly. 2, we can use them to reposition around us. That's mostly going to be dive because it's much more precise in that way. And 3, we can use them to dodge abilities. Now, I think a lot of mistakes that players make is they will use Surge as a dodging tool for pretty much everything, when the reality is there's only 2 instances really where you should be using it to dodge. That's going to be at Carapac and at Telos. They basically have the same mechanic. Telos has Gilnor uppercut and Carapac has his melee slams. The initial hit, if you tick perfect surge, you can dodge it. But that's the only time you should really be using it strictly to dodge an ability. Otherwise, you should only be using dive to reposition, or you should be using surge and dive to get to places a little bit faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of clips where I use these abilities and I explain why I'm using them in a certain way and how I'm using them. And then hopefully this will help you build a more holistic understanding of when you should be using them and what bad ways to use them are. So the first place we're going to start at is Zuck. So the way I do this first wave now is relatively intense, but what we're going to do is we're going to kill all of these guys, and my threads is still on, so I'm going to dive over here in order to hit these enemies with threads. So that, for instance, is one way that you can use it. But yeah, the only places where that's super useful is at Zuck and at Elite Dungeons, but it is incredibly useful at those places where you can use your dive to get a little bit further, and then by using it between ticks, you can get an extra ability out that still applies threads. So super good stuff. So the next place we're going to head is Carapac. And the way that you can use it here is you can use it to dodge his melee slams. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit Carapac. I'm going to walk under him. In normal mode, you don't have to do this since physical rifts don't spawn. But if you walk under him, it does stop him from doing anything. Or it does still stop the rift from spawning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the melee slams, and then I will show you the timing. So basically, his wings are going to like tilt back a little bit, and that's when you want to surge. And you can see it just straight dodges the ability. If you do it too late, you will still get hit by it. So this is one of the few instances where you actually want to use it in order to dodge an ability. Okay, so now we'll be talking about how you can use surge and dive for general mobility. Now, the way that surge and dive work is that 1, surge will go 10 squares in any straight line with basically no exceptions, and dive can hit anywhere inside of a 20 by 20 box, with the main exception is if you go outside of the box, it typically favors moving in a straight line. So I don't have a mobile on right now, but in a few seconds I will just dive again, where if you're inside the 10 by 10 box, it usually lets you just pick a square and you can jump to that square. But if you go outside of it, then it limits where you can go. So like if I want to go here, this is within the square, so I'm all good. If you click outside of your dive square, it will only move in a straight line. So generally speaking, these can't go through walls. However, there is an exception. There are 2 types of terrain in RuneScape. There is passable and impassable terrain. So right now, in this room in Warforged, this wall is considered impassable terrain. So the edge of this wall I cannot pass through, so I can't dive over here. However, even though I can't walk on this area here, this is not impassable terrain. There's just no terrain here, period. So I could dive over here and I can clear this area to save a little bit of time, even though there's nothing here for me to walk on, right? So if we walk back, like these are the walkable tiles. I just dove over all of this because even though I can't walk here, there aren't any walls or there isn't any code here that says I'm not allowed to stand here. The same thing is true at the Sanderson Asylum. So we'll just go over here for a second to show what that looks like. So these boxes and these railings are not impassable terrain. They're just walls. So if you dive over here, it lets you clear all of these boxes, which saves you a couple seconds. There's a lot more examples of this, but that's how that works. The same thing is also true of Surge, where if you can angle your camera or if you can angle your character in the same way, you're actually able to surge and clear these walls as well. Now, the surging is a lot more precise, so it's generally not worth using the same way, but you can use it. And there are instances where it's the optimal method of moving. So for instance, what a lot of people do when they fast bank, when they go to next, specifically AOD, is they'll land at the portal. They'll move one step east, surge, hit the Altar of War, move one step diagonally northwest and surge, and then dive next to the crystal. And then that's like the fastest way to bank. So you do that, you restore all of your prayer, you restore your adrenaline, you enter the next bank, you rebank here, and you're good to go. So that's how you can use it optimally to like go through walls and stuff like that. So we've already talked about how we can use Surge to improve our general movement. We've talked about how we can use it to dodge certain abilities, notably Carapax Slam and Telos Gilnor Uppercut. And we've talked about how we can use it in between global cooldowns to expand our AoE range, especially with Threads of Fate. Here, we're just going to do a very quick demonstration of how we can improve our general movement, or how we can use it to like get places a little bit quicker. So here, I can surge because this is a relatively straight line. I can not surge here because this is not a straight line, but I can dive. So if I wanted to, I could dive here. And that would be like a fast way to get around its beginning part of E3. So that was just a quick demonstration, but that kind of shows how these straight lines work here. Because this is impassable terrain, I can't just dive through here, or I can't surge through here, but I can walk up here and dive around it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it for this movement tutorial and how we can use our movement and some of the optimal use cases. With all of this, your movement should be a lot better. And once the speed killing guide for Zuck comes out, you'll see how I use all of these techniques to really improve my kills and how I can save a lot of HP by just having very precise movements. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.